Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of So Chatty with Walter and Stephen. And this is So Chatty for September the 19th, 2025. And today we're going to talk a little bit about the upcoming retreat. More or less, you're getting a behind the scenes look at what goes into putting these retreats together. I thought I've had people ask me before, and they've said, well, it's an awful lot of work. And yes, it is an awful lot of work, but it's something I enjoy. But we're going to talk about the work that goes into it and how things are put together, how I figure out who's going to be a guest speaker, how the technical aspects behind it all, our camera work and things like that, what Walter's role is, if he gets out of bed in time.
I will get
yeah.
up. I make a special effort.
He makes a special effort. It is a special thing, yes. Anyways, as I said, Walter's just here for eye candy. Yeah, I know how all you ladies love to see Walter. I don't understand why, but there's no accounting for taste. Okay, so, and I don't want someone writing me a nasty comment saying, you're always picking on Walter. Oh, if the truth be really known. Works the other way around. Anyways, let us start with projects that I've been working on, we've been working on. So there it is, the Halloween kitty, the Abracadabra panel, and I have it all done. And I think it turned out pretty good. I didn't have exactly the same fabrics as they called for in the pattern. Pattern, by the way, is not very well written. Now, I don't know if it's because I found a free version of the pattern. Yes, I admit it. I found a free version. If free is better. But the same pattern is for sale all over the internet. I'm not sure if the paid one is better written. I suspect. However, the free one came to be about. It looks the same as what I can see of the paid ones, at least the first page and the back page. So maybe the stuff in between, I don't know. Maybe somebody decided to create their pattern by looking at this, because it's not that hard. You could do it. Or whatnot. But anyways, it wasn't a particularly well written pattern, which if I'd been a rank beginner, I probably would have scrapped the project and done my own thing with it. On the other hand, though, you know, if you are an experienced quilter, you probably can figure it out with not too much effort. I did, but it was still just very annoying. But anyways, it didn't cost me anything, so which guess I can't complain. Can't get my money back. So anyways, there it is. It is quilted. In this picture, you can't see the quilting very well. I don't know if I can blow it up for you to see a spot. I can try.
You can get the moon is
Well, there we go. Yeah. Yeah, the moon. If you take a look up here in the moon, you can see what I quilted it with. It's bats and swirls and stars. Lucy did cooperate that day with it, and I used a kind of a goldy orange color because the panel, I didn't want to take away too much from the panel itself, but I think that particular quilting pattern worked out all right. And as I said, Lucy cooperated in the day. So I don't have a picture of the back of this. Well, actually I do, but I'm going to show it on Idiot Quilter. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about this in more detail. Like a little boo-boo that, well, Lucy cooperated, but then Lucy has this little quirk where well, I'll talk about that on Tuesday on the Idiot Quilter, but here's my binding. I didn't have any real Halloween fabric. I had this dark swirly one I've had for a while in my stash, and I could have taken some Halloween fabric and sewn it together, but I don't like that. I like to have one piece of backing. So, and it works. It works for this. You'll see that too on Tuesday. Okay, so there's that. Let me see if I can get this down to. And then, okay, so yes, you've seen me making these felt tote bags, but this one's a little different than the other ones because I got the idea from Kim McGowan, who is the organizer of the Atlantic Embroiderers group that's on Facebook. And she comes on here lots of times too, as one of my subscribers. And she's major into machine embroidery, so she's doing these bags as well. But she did a version where she cut the bag down. So rather than making them really long, she cut off well, I assumed how she did it. I cut off pieces off the end to make it a little more square than rectangle, and did my embroidery on that and put it back together. Now, the reason being for this size, I was thinking, well, I am going to put gifts in these bags. However, the gifts are going to be like, it's not going to fill the bag kind of a deal. And I thought this might be a nice size for one person I have in mind for this one. So yeah, I tried that, but I'm not going to recommend it. And here's why. Well, maybe because I'm not good at quilt math or any kind of math, to a certain extent. I had forgot that once you cut down the front and the back panel, you also have to cut down the centerpiece that goes around that the front and back panel attached to. And mathematically, well, now that I look at it, I know what I could have done, but I was thinking that if I cut it off at the ends on equal amount on either end when it's laid out flat, it would be then it would not be the right height for the front and back panel. But I forgot, and this is hard to explain, but that will work if you do it that way. I didn't think it would, because I was forgetting that I'm really attaching it to the side, not on the top. I can't explain this.
Yeah, I don't understand what your problem is.
Okay, no. Let me just grab something here and explain this. Okay, here's the bag. Okay, so when you do this, you take the front panel completely off, and you take the back panel completely off, and then what you're left with is this end piece, but the end piece goes all the way around to the other side. So in my way of thinking, if I cut this just off on the ends, it would be too short, because I wasn't cutting anything off the top of the front and the back panel. I was just cutting off a piece on the sides. No.
Yeah, because this piece would have to be adjusted to
yeah,
the length of it.
But for some reason, yeah, it would have to be adjusted to length. But what I was thinking of, but if I cut it off from those edges, I would then become too short for these panels. That was how it was working in my mind. I know it's wrong. Okay. So what I did was I cut it out from the middle of the bottom. So I have a seam on the bottom. Okay. Then when I was putting it back together, and what I did was I figured out I had cut off 3.5 inches from either side, from the edges of these handles on either side of these front panels. So my theory was I needed to cut out a 3.5 inch piece out of the middle of the panel when it was laid flat. The side, this one, okay, it's getting complicated again. This is very hard to explain. But I needed to leave at least a 1/4 inch, like, so I could have a 1/4 inch seam, which more, so I had to do the math. So I did the math and fit it back together, sewed it, have a seam, and then when I put it back together, no, they were too tall.
Yeah.
Because I should have cut them off just on the end, which would have made life a lot easier if I'd done it that way. I did figure it out, obviously, eventually.
You could have just put it back together and then cut, and then figured out where the end was.
And that's exactly what I did after that. Because, yeah. So I didn't need to have this seam in the middle, which I just made a simple thing much more complicated, which I do a lot of. But I am geometrically challenged. I don't see angles. I don't see in 3 dimensions. Oh, I did think. And I overthought it. That was the problem. I overthought it. But I have a real problem visualizing angles. If it's flat, if it's 2-dimensional, not a problem. When it's 3-dimensional, it might be a learning disability that's never been detected. I don't know. Of course, I should have said, Walter, how would you do this? And he would say, well, you just need to do this and everything's simple. Because, you know, he's a genius. The legend in his own mind. Anyways, I got it to work. But when it's also, it was a bit of a bitch to sew it back together because, and again, now I understand why it was a bitch to sew together. I had a real problem with the corners because I had to reshape. No, it wouldn't have mattered. I had to reshape the front and back panels, the corners again, to make them round so they'd fit into here. And that wasn't hard to do that. I just took the original and just, traced it, and but when you get it under the sewing machine, there's that a little less space. You wouldn't think so when you're crunching this thing under the needle. And even on the big bags, it's a little tricky. Like you do a lot of clipping, and that little wonder clips on it. Anyways, I got it to work. That's all that matters. And guess what? I'm not doing another one. The hell with it. Everybody gets a big bag. I'm not going through that hell. These bags are taking me long enough as it is. So, anyways, welcome to my world. So, all right, I had to show you this.
That is rude.
It is rude, isn't it rude? Okay, so I'm into the Thanksgiving mode and that, and I was thinking, I don't know, we may be getting together with my sister and her kids and husband and everybody for Thanksgiving dinner or something like that. And I always like to take something over when I go to dinner. Yes, give me that one. You can show it. And this is supposed to be a napkin holder. I saw it. Here it is in real life. It's a turkey. I made him in that color because it was an experiment. And he's got a hole in him. And the idea is, as you saw in the picture, the napkin goes through the hole. I didn't realize they were going to be this big. I mean, it's like it's a Cornish game hen. I don't know. I thought it would be funny as hell because I was going to make some napkins as well, and then I would go over to my sisters or whatever if they were here. I'd put one on each person's dinner plate, and I thought that would just be a scream. But the suckers are huge, so it's still funny, but it doesn't necessarily mean I won't go through with it. But I mean, I was thinking like this would also be a fun but a practical gift because decorative things, but it is kind of rude. Anyways, don't drop my turkey. Yeah, the things you can make in your 3D printer. Yeah. So, what have you been doing?
Well, last week I started a shirt for you, but I haven't done anything else on it.
No.
So, I've been meaning to, but...
Yeah, meaning best intentions, yeah. So, basically, you've just been studying up on Japan. Every day he has something new to tell me about Japan.
Yeah, well, I gotta stop doing that because I'm gonna be jam-panned out by the time we go. So,
yeah.
But anyway,
foremost authority on Japan. Yeah, from videos and everything, how to eat, what not to eat, what to do. We're learning lots of things. It's not really scary, but it's definitely different from what we've ever been used to before. So, anyways, you'll hear more about that when we get into next year.
Yeah,
because we don't go until next May.
And we've got it set up so that if for some reason something happened between then and now, we could actually cancel it and get all our money back.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. Walter's very good at doing that, making sure that we're covered. Okay, so what's coming up? Sewing with Stephen Wednesdays as usual. So links in the show notes below. Fall retreat. Reminder, October 25th. Today we're going to talk about behind the scenes of the retreat as well. And just about October 1st right now, tentatively I have planned to release a video that will explain everything you need to know about registering and what to expect from the retreat on October the 1st. And it'll be about a week after that I'll open up the registration for that as well. But all that will be explained in great detail. And right now, I think the next pop-up sew day is going to be October the 11th, which if you are Canadian, that is Thanksgiving weekend. So some of the Canadians might have a lot of plans that weekend, even if it's on the Saturday, or not. I don't know. We don't have any. So I'm having the pop-up that day because I'm going to go to Walter's in-person sew day the week after when they have that. I haven't been to one of them in quite a while, mainly because I don't like those people. No, that's not where I don't go. It's just that, as a quilter, you're lugging stuff there, and I don't want my quilt to touch the floor in that place.
Actually, the floor is not too bad shape-wise.
Well, what do you garment workers? You don't have to worry about anything. You guys have little short pieces that you deal
Yeah,
with
yeah, I know.
when you're dealing with like a 72-inch or 80-inch quilt. But I'm
Yeah,
not
yeah.
going to work on a quilt. I'm going to work on that table runner that I've already showed you the pattern for, that I created, and that for my hairdresser. I figured that's an easy project to work on there, and so I'm holding back working on it right now until that date comes in. I mean, it won't take me long to make it, and I'll have all the pieces cut for it and everything, and away I'll go. So, okay, so that's all that's coming up at the moment. So, today's topic, we're going to talk about what goes into putting this whole virtual retreat together. Now, those of you that have been to one, two, or all of my virtual retreats, I think we're about to do, I think it's virtual retreat number 8. I think I've been doing them, well, I've been doing them since 2021. So, yeah, 4 years of retreat, and I do 2 a year. So yeah, this is retreat number 8, I guess. Um, and I've had people, as I mentioned earlier, who have asked, well, how do you go about planning something like this? I have had people tell me that they think it goes along without a hitch, which makes me very happy because I want it to be very smooth experience. I want things to be organized. I want things to be well timed, and pray that there's no technical problems. But to make everything go along very seamlessly, that takes a lot of planning. Now, I've done it enough times now that it's not as big a chore as it was in the early days of the retreat. Um, but I thought, okay, I'll explain how we do it. So, why do I do a virtual retreat as opposed to an in-person retreat? Well, the first of all, is fairly obvious. I can't do an in-person retreat. Well, I could, but I mean that involves getting a hall, and then of course all of you out there come from all over the place, so you're not all going to be traveling up here to Canada to our end of the world to go to a 1 day retreat. Don't think that's going to happen. Um, but I like virtual retreats more so than in-person retreats. And I think this is a leftover from COVID. Before COVID, we'd go to an in-person retreat, and I always had a good time at most of them, that kind of thing. But you know what it's like when you go to an in-person retreat, right? You got to lug all your stuff. And no matter how well you plan, no matter how well you pack for that, you always forget something, like pieces to whatever it is that you're making or whatever. So, yeah, that's a problem.
I've even had that happen to one of my day retreats where I get there and I go, oh crap, my project's in here, not in here, or part of it isn't in here.
It's very easy because if you start thinking about it, there's a lot of stuff you're taking. And then when you get to the retreat, you have to set up. And that takes some time. Trying to get yourself oriented to the environment you're in, figuring out where you're going to plug everything in, making sure you have things organized around you. And it takes a good hour usually when you get to a retreat to actually get into the sewing. And of course there's lots of things happening when you're there too. People are talking to you, you're talking to people. You guys, like, at yours.
Yeah, geez, like I mean, we seems the first hour we start at 10, and in the first hour all we do is sit and talk for an hour, and so we don't end up getting to sewing until like 11 o'clock. So
Now, there's nothing wrong with that, because a lot of people go to an in-person retreat for the socialization. So, you see people you haven't seen for a while, or you're meeting new people and you're talking about things. And so that's okay. That's fine. I think the thing is when you go to, and this is sort of an aside, when you go to a in-person retreat, you probably have all these plans about how much you're going to get done. Well, always expect that you're never going to get all those things done. I always took too many projects with me, figuring, oh, I've got all this time. I'm going to be, crack of dawn until wee hours of the morning sewing and everything. I get a lot of stuff done. Never works out
I
that
mean,
way.
going to a regular retreat or going to a in-person retreat is also good because sometimes you pick up techniques and think you see what other people are working on,
Yeah.
and you can sort of you might pick up some information or techniques, or you talk in general stuff about sewing, or you find out about a new store or something like that.
But I think the biggest disadvantage to an in-person retreat is what I just said: the packing up,
Hmm.
the getting there. You know, if it's a destination place, you know, you have to worry about accommodation, that maybe food, maybe not. You know, depends on what kind of retreat it
Yeah,
is,
and
and there's an expense.
it's not so bad if, like, I mean, I go for a day retreat, but to a place that's in my own city, so it's basically a 20-minute drive for me to get there, right? But I mean, a lot of retreats are 2-3 hour drives away, some longer.
Yeah.
And you have to, it takes a lot out of your time to pack everything up, make sure you've got everything that you need, and then get there.
Yeah. And then, so before COVID, in-person retreats were the thing. Then COVID hit, and we're all housebound. And that's when I decided to design the first virtual retreat. And I really didn't know what I was doing, but I spent great deal of time putting my ideas on paper, well, on computer, and shaping it and figuring it all out. And the first one was a really great success. And I thought, well, this worked out okay. Let's have another one. But I didn't want to have them on too regular a basis either. So I limited myself to one in the spring, one in the fall. Figured it gave, you know, about a 6 month period between retreats or whatever, which was enough to not be boring, and enough time for the planning and everything like that. So, yeah. And it was an opportunity too, because that's when Zoom came on, right? And at the time. And I figured this is a great format. And I was the only person that thought that with Zoom. Look at, we're a Zoom society now. That's maybe one of the best things that came out of COVID, if there was any best things about it. You know, where people before, we may not, especially in people in our age bracket, you know, the kids are using social media and doing all kinds of stuff all the time. You know, it's nothing for them. They FaceTime, they mostly text, but that kind of stuff. But us older people, that is something that's not we're not as quite as comfortable with. So I think now most people are fairly comfortable with using Zoom because everything is Zoom these days, and that's fine. So yeah, I want to have something that was my way of contributing to helping people feel less isolated, because we've all felt isolated. And as Walter said, in an in-person retreat, you learn from other people as well, but you do on a virtual one too.
Yeah, I mean, you still have socialization on a virtual retreat. You still talk to people. They still enable you to buy stuff.
Yes.
And you get a chance to, I mean, it's not quite the same as being in person with somebody, but it's the next best thing.
And if you want to talk behind somebody's back, you can just have a private conversation and chat with somebody else, or just turn off
Yeah,
your
and
mic. I'm being facetious here. I'm being funny. Yeah.
but it is the next best thing. And the nice thing I think is you get to do it from your sewing room. So you
Yes.
don't have to lug a machine somewhere. You don't have to worry about forgetting stuff. You're at home. Probably the bad thing for some people is that they get interrupted by their family or something like that.
Yeah. Or they're not comfortable with the technology and they stumble through that. Although, as I said, I think more and more people are, it's just becoming second nature Zoom for anything. Because, I mean, you can take classes on Zoom, meetings on Zoom, guild meetings on Zoom, everything like that. So, the next part of the whole process, once you've decided on your medium for a retreat, which in my case is Zoom, then you got to decide where you're going to have it. And you would think that's fairly straightforward, but not really. You've got to think about your audience and the time of the year. So I don't do a virtual retreat in the middle of the summer. Reason being is, if the weather's nice, people don't want to be indoors. They want to be out and about and doing things, or they're on vacation or something like that. There's lots of things that take up their time. So I do it in this early spring, because in the early spring, we're getting a little antsy. We're getting a little bit of cabin fever, especially for us in the Northern Hemisphere, a little bit. You know, want to do something. And the weather's getting a little nicer, but still maybe not nice enough. Again, in the northern hemisphere, I'm talking more from where we live, where you really, you're not running out in shorts and sandals, kind of a thing. And so the spring, early spring is good. Also, there's a sense of renewal at that time. People are more energetic, I think, at that point in the year because, nicer weather's coming. Then I do one in the fall. Now, the fall is busy, especially since most of my subscribers tend to come from the States. You people have a lot of holidays. Okay, it seems that they all come at once. Thanksgiving is at the end of November, and right after that, it's everybody's in Christmas mode. So bad time to have a retreat, I think, is in that time period right then, because people are busy with family and celebrations and parties and getting ready for Christmas and whatnot. So I never have it at the end of November into December. I think October is a good month for it. Now, here in Canada, we have our Thanksgiving, as I've already said, comes early in October. But unlike American Thanksgiving is a really big thing. In some ways, I think it's bigger than Christmas itself because, people fly to be with their family, all that kind of stuff. That's really, here in Canada, no, it's a long weekend kind of a thing. It's not really quite the same. Now, maybe I'm wrong about that. And of course, it depends on your family too and what you do, what your traditions are. But for the most part, I think it's a little bit more low key here in Canada. Maybe because it comes so soon after we just got out of summer kind of a thing, it feels like. So I have to pick the date. And then I have to look at, what holidays are coming up for other people. Got to look at my schedule, our schedule. Walter likes to throw in a trip in there when it would be an appropriate time to have a retreat. Like this year, my retreat in the spring was a little earlier than I usually have it because we were going to the Netherlands and had to work around all of that too. So yeah, but once you have the dates, then the next part of all of this is lining up the guest speakers. The guest speakers are really, I think, the high point of the retreat. And I want to have guest speakers that are dynamic, that people will know and want to hear speak or see a presentation by them, and are available. That's why I picked the dates first. And don't want any money for it. Because my retreat is free. We'll come back to that for why it is. But I can't afford to pay my guest speakers. So that also limits who I can get. I've had many people suggest that I get, Jenny Doan from Missouri Star Quilt, Donna Jordan when she was still with us, that kind of thing. I don't even bother. They're too big. And they also run businesses. So I can't pay them. There isn't anything really in it for them on a business line. If you want to get somebody like that as a guest speaker, you better have a haul, you better be able to pay them, and it better be worth their while. And I can't do any of that kind of stuff. So I look for people that are a little bit, I prefer ones that already have a YouTube channel because I know that people will know who they are. Although not all of my guests have a YouTube channel, and that's been fine. I want to pick ones who, if they do have a YouTube channel, they might not have as big a following as, say, the Jenny Doans in the world and those kind of people, but it's a way to help boost their channel because maybe a lot of people haven't heard about those individuals. So that helps.
Sometimes you take from your subscriber base because
yes, yep.
There are a lot of talented people from the subscriber base too.
And I do, and I look for people in my subscriber base for this too. Now, there are tons of people in my subscriber base that I could have on these retreats. But here's the problem, and this is not an insult to them, but they are maybe brilliant quilters, but are they able to speak to an audience about their quilting journey in a way that, well, they're not nervous, and they are organized speakers. So I have to look at their qualities. And that's one reason why I pick people who have a YouTube channel, because generally speaking, YouTube creators are used to speaking to an audience, even if it's through this medium. And they usually are organized as to, thumbs up, what they're going to speak about and that kind of thing. Nothing turns off an audience and they could be a brilliant quilter, but if they him and haw and stumble and are disorganized in their presentation, or they show that they're really nervous, that makes an audience feel uncomfortable for them. And that's not the kind of environment you want. You want the audience to feel like they're going to get something from the presentation, and that they can ask questions as well, and the speaker can handle being asked questions. So these are all factors I have to take into consideration when considering a guest speaker. Then I have to send them an email. And if it's somebody who I don't know that well, I have to explain who I am, what I'm asking for, what I'm doing. And in some cases, I have to also tell them what the benefits are to them for doing this. And then I have to break the news to them that they don't get paid. They just get my undying gratitude for all time. That's sometimes not enough. All right. So yeah, and does it work into their schedule as well? So yeah, and I've had lots of people who say, you know, they've been very nice. I've never had anybody just turn around and say, you know, screw you, I'm not doing it. But I've had people who, for one reason or another, didn't feel comfortable with doing it, or it didn't work into their schedule, or they felt it was taking on too much because they already had a very, very busy schedule and things. And that's all fine. That's perfectly all right. I usually have a number of possibilities, and then I prioritize them. I know who I'm going to approach first, and if they say no, I go to the next one down on the list until I get my presenters. Then I work with the presenters. I let them know how much time they're going to have for their presentation, what my idea is for their presentation. I encourage them to shape it in whatever way suits their style best and what they want to talk about. In some cases, I send them some questions if it's going to be more of an interview format, so that they're well prepared in advance. I send them the agenda for the day. I check times. Like some of my guests, like this one coming up, I have Adam from Adam Sews. Well, he's 5 hours ahead of us because he's over in the United Kingdom. So I have to take that into consideration. I don't want him hanging around all day. And if I put him on at, say, 4 o'clock in the afternoon our time, it's 9 o'clock in the evening his time. And, you know, he might be a little tired before then, or, you know, that kind of thing. So I want them to choose the time that they will do. I'll give them suggestions and I'll work with that. So once I have all the speakers down and I've talked to them and I've gone over the agenda, my proposed agenda for the day and plans for it and everything, then I can move on. And that means finalizing the agenda and organizing it, because I don't just do speakers on that day. We have got a time when people will be joining us. So that has to be looked after. I have to know when I'm going to have the slideshow, because yes, there is a slideshow. There's a quilt show virtually that comes from the people who are registered, and there'll be details about that coming up, about sending me a picture of their quilts. I have to have time to put that together as a slideshow as well, because I put it together as a presentation with music and the whole bit. So all of that has to be put into the timing. Also, I have to spread things out over the course of the agenda during the day so people have time to sew, because that's the point, of the virtual retreat. So there's a lot that goes into that. But like I said, I've done it enough times now that I basically have a template for all of this. So I just kind of fill in the blanks and fine tune with it. Um, then there's the whole thing of getting the word out there, announcements. Now, I have been saying on every one of the videos lately, I've been saying, remember the date, October the 25th, so people can recite it in their sleep. But people need reminders. They need information. They need a copy of the agenda for the day. I like to give that all out in advance. Um, they have to know certain things about the technology. I have a section on an email that I send out to them that takes them to YouTube videos. If there's someone that's a little unsure of how to use their computer or their iPad or phone with Zoom, that helps them out. Because as I said, I want this to be seamless. I want people to have a minimal amount of problems with the technology. Now, that's not to say that, and Walter is there too, as well. So we'll troubleshoot. In fact, I have to have Walter do more of the troubleshooting than me because this is not a one-man show to run this. And in a moment, I'll talk about the technology that goes into it and Walter's role in all of this. But it takes two of us to really run this smoothly in the day because there's a lot of hats that I'm wearing in the one day of it. So there's the announcements. I always make a video explaining the whole retreat. That'll be coming out on October the 1st, so watch for it, where I go through all the ins and outs and how you register for it. And yes, you have to register for the retreat. We'll talk about why that is in a moment. And I also explain something called the blacklist on that video. Well, let's talk about registering. I will give a date when registration will be open, a day and a time. And there is a span of time. It's not just 1 day, 1 hour kind of thing. But there is a day where the registration is open, like any event that you might go to that you have to register. You know, at 9 o'clock on this date, registration will be open. Now, registration is a very easy thing on this. You just basically send me an email with your first and last name, and you're registered. But why do I register people? Well, I have a Zoom license, but my Zoom license only allows me 100 people. So that, and I have to leave spots for Walter and I will be running 1, 2, 3, 4 computer technologies. I say because I have a variety. I run an iPad. I run 2 computers. Walter will have his computer. So we need to have a spot each.
Not only that, your presenters need spots.
Oh, and
too,
my
yeah.
spots, my presenters need spots as well. So basically, I can handle about, well, I have a license for 100. I need 4 spots for Walter and myself, and I'll need a spot for each presenter. Yeah. So I'm going to have to take, actually this year be a little bit more because I have a few more presenters than I usually have. So I'm going to be able to handle about 93 people. Now you're going to go, 93 people? That's tons. I usually have a waiting list. And when registration opens, the emails flood in. And I spend, the first day of registration, I spend the majority of my morning anyways getting people registered for it. And it's not hard, but you know, you don't want to screw up. I want to make sure I have everybody's information correct, and because I sent you back a confirmation saying yes, you are registered, your spot is reserved. Now, this is what sometimes happens. Because I don't charge anything for this, there are people who will register for it, and then on the day of the event, they don't show up. Now, I've already mentioned I have a waiting list. What I do is when somebody, once my registration is filled up, I start the waiting list. And I put people in the list in the order that they come in requesting to register. If someone drops out and they've sent me an email to let me know, you know, something has happened, I can't be there, that's fine. Life happens. I remove that person from the registration and I take the first person on my list, on the waiting list, and I stick them in that slot and I send them a confirmation and go, you're in. Here you go. But what has happened in the past is I've had some people register for it and never showed up. I can't do anything for the waiting list after the retreat has started. So they've basically filled a spot that they didn't take, that blocked a person on the waiting list who really want to be here, couldn't get on. And I don't think that's fair. So their name goes down onto the blacklist. Now, if they send me an email after the fact, after the retreat, the next day after the retreat or something, say, I'm so sorry. This emergency came up, blah, blah, blah. And I'll go, okay, this has happened. That's unfortunate. Usually it's something pretty severe, like someone's been hospitalized. I hate to say it, or something else has happened. Here's what's not a good excuse. Oh, I didn't expect the grandkids to come over, but they did. No, no, no. Oh, my great grandmother died for the 5th time this month. No, 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 no. Oh, I had a friend give me a call and she needed some help moving a box. No, no. I think you're getting the point. The point is, it has to be not a life and death, but it has to be a serious reason why you didn't show up. Because you took a spot that could have gone to somebody on the waiting list. You're not hurting my feelings when you don't show up. You're hurting somebody else with it, and I can't allow that. So that's why you go on the blacklist. What's the blacklist mean then? Next time I have a retreat, if you're on the blacklist and you apply for registration, you go on another list. You go on the very bottom of the wait list. If at the very last moment before I open the doors to the retreat, I have a spot available, you might get it. But the chances are you probably won't. And I have had that happen many times. Well, not many times, but I've had it happen, and that's just rude. That's just rude. So yeah, I'll say more.
Well, not only that, if you have one person one time came back and said something to the effect that they were busy with somebody that had a chronic disease or something like that, and we're always busy shuttling them around and doing all this other stuff, and that date came around and they totally forgot, well, you don't forget things like that.
No, and if you're doing that on a regular basis, you need to plan for that. I've heard a lot of sob stories, and I'm sorry, but I was a high school teacher and I've heard a lot of excuses.
Yeah, dog ate my homework.
Yeah.
Like long-winded excuses that, I'm sorry you're in that situation, but
I had one lady didn't show up. Never sent me an email, never explained. Several days after the retreat, actually about a week after the retreat, oh yeah, I'm sorry I couldn't make the retreat. It was my 70th birthday and my children surprised me by taking me out for lunch. Now you're going to say, well, she couldn't have planned for that. Yes, she could. It's her 70th birthday. You mean to tell me that she didn't think somebody in her family was going to do something for that? It's a milestone birthday.
Now, mind you, did the thing take the whole day? You could have popped in and said later in the afternoon, oh, I'm so sorry, I was going to join earlier today, but something came up. They at least came and joined that day for at least
for a bit to they could have, but no, that was just, and the attitude that I got from that was, well, it didn't cost me anything, it didn't cost you anything, so it's all good. No, it's not all good, because you took a spot away from a person on the waiting list who wanted to be here. So yeah, I take the registration very seriously. So if you're not sure, if you can't commit to that date, don't register. Enough said
Yeah, I know.
about that.
Plus, it's a free event, right? It's a free event. And the reason you're doing this is because you want to make sure that people think it's important to commit.
Yeah, because it's very easy to say, well, it's not costing me anything. So, something else better came up. Or suddenly that morning I was just saying, oh, I'm feeling lazy today. I don't really want to do that. If I had asked you for money, if you had a register with a non-refundable um, deposit or something like that, you might think twice about just canceling on a whim. So, but I don't charge. We'll come to why I don't charge in a second. Okay, so that's how registration will work. But like I said, there'll be more specific details about that in another couple of weeks. All right, prizes. This is what makes the virtual retreat a little bit different from my pop-up sew days, for example, or from it also creates a new problem because you can have prizes at an in-person retreat, but the thing is, an in-person retreat, they go, and you won. Here's your prize. Well, I can't reach through the screen and give you a prize. And so what I have done in the past is I have a bunch of prizes. They're either a pattern, which I have either bought and I have as a PDF, or they're ones that I got free from the internet. So I'll have draws for that. And in the past, I've also had some Amazon gift certificates because it's very easy for me to, through Amazon, no matter where you are, at least in North America, I can, send you the link for this gift certificate and all fine and dandy. I was planning this year until recently that I could have a couple of prizes where I would actually send you a physical prize, which would be, well, what I used to do on our lives for a very short time, a box of my 3D prints. I call it a mystery box. And they would have some sewing things in them plus whatever else. And I'd mail it to you in North America. But here's the problem. I'm in Canada. You could be in the States. For me to ship you something to the States, regardless of how much it costs to ship, and shipping is not cheap, there's tariffs now. And since the American government has removed the thing they called the
de minimis,
whatever, which was allowed you to receive something if it was a personal gift or something like that, up to $800 without having to pay any kind of duty on it or anything like that. Well, that is all changed. So I might send you a box of goodies, but they're going to charge you duty on it.
And we don't know how much
and we don't know how much that is because nobody seems to know how much that is anymore. We've heard as much as 10% of the 800 that it used to be up to 800 free, $80. Well, what I'd be selling you would not have been worth $80, or what I'm sending to you would not have been valued at $80.
So basically, we don't want to risk that.
So yeah, we don't want you to have to pay for a prize that you've won.
Yeah.
So we won't be doing that. Amazon gift certificates may still be a possibility, but here's the other thing. It's getting pricey because of the difference in our money value. If you're an American, Canadian, not so bad because it's all the same, but it's about 35% more. So if I send you a gift certificate valued at $20 American, that costs me, do the math,
about $28.
About $29. Yeah. And if I have multiples of this, then yeah, you can see how it starts that up. Remember, I don't charge. I don't have any money coming in. Anything I spend is my money out of all of this. So I don't know this year whether I'm going to do that or not. I've already got all the patterns. I have picked out some really cool patterns, and I have all of that ready to go. I'll have to see it. Verdict is the jury's still out on.
Now, yeah, some people say, well, then why don't you charge?
Yeah, and that's where I'm going to get into this right now then. Why do I not charge for this event? Because the simple answer is this: I have no way of collecting funds I'm not a business, so you can't charge it. Um, like you can't use your Visa, MasterCard, whatever card for it because I'm not a business. There is such a thing as an e-transfer, but e-transfer can be tricky depending on where you are in the world. If you are outside of Canada, e-transfer will work, but there could be complications with that into our system because the American banking system is different from our banking system, the way things are regulated and the way things are done. Businesses can get around that because they have things set up, portals, basically, for this. I don't. Also, it's a pain in the butt. Um, I'd have to make decisions. If I charge you, say, I don't know, $50 for this retreat, is that non-refundable? Do I make it non-refundable? Because if it's not, and you call up me or send me an email and say, and it's a legitimate excuse, I can't come now, and so if I make it so that I can refund you, then there's that whole problem with the money back and forth with it all. Plus, if you're coming from outside of our country, there's also the exchange rate. There's an awful lot of complications in this. Some people have suggested, well, why not just charge then a non-refundable registration fee, like for $10 or something to register? Well, again, everything I've already said affects that. I don't have any way of collecting the funds, and I don't want to deal with money. When you deal with money, it presents a lot of problems. Okay, so no, that's why it's free. If it's all this much work and everything, why do I put myself through this? Because I enjoy doing this. I love to organize things. I was a school teacher, organizing everything all my day, every day of my working life, kind of a deal. This is second nature to me. So, and also I have a good time. I mean, it might sound a little weird, but I kind of get my jollies off of organizing. I'm just that way. Maybe.
Well, not only that, what actually is a good feedback is when people come to the retreat and are enjoying themselves.
Yeah,
Then
and that's the bottom
you're,
line.
you're basically holding a party,
Mm-hmm.
and you're the entertainer or you're the host, and it's nice when you see people enjoying themselves at the retreat.
Nothing makes me happier than people who send me thank you emails after the fact. This is not a requirement. After the fact, but say how much they enjoyed the day, how much they got done, how much they enjoyed the guest speakers and everything like that. That I really enjoy hearing because I know I've done my job and I've done my job well with it. And that's what keeps me going, doing it time and time again. Um, so basically that's why I do it more than anything else. It's just to give people an opportunity to have a good time. That was really important during COVID because it gave people an outlet, something to look forward to have a good day with that. But that's just carried over since COVID. Um, all right, so technology. I've already said that when you get the registration, after you've registered, I will send you out a little package of information. And in that information, there'll be links to YouTube videos, albeit they're a little dated now, but the basis is still there. Tried to look for some newer ones, but I found some, but they were more geared towards people that were using Zoom as a business or whatever, or they were like way too detailed about everything from how do you get a Zoom account to the different tiers of Zoom and all this stuff. And I thought, no, that's too much information. These other ones are short, sweet, to the point, and for the most part, they still apply to whatever technology you're using. If you want something that's a little more up to date, you just do your own search on YouTube and find it or whatever, just on the just use Google. Now with its AI, it'll come up with something for it as well. But I do provide that in beforehand. It's very difficult for either Walter and I during the retreat to troubleshoot problems you may have. We will try though. We will try. But here's the problem. I'm using a Mac computer system and an iPad. Walter's on a Mac as well. Someone will be on a PC, on a Windows computer. Things could be a little bit different. Also, it is very difficult to see what people see on their end because we can't see your screen. So, and some people aren't very clear. Well, I push the thing. You know, it's the old joke. Well, it told me to press any key, but my keyboard doesn't have a key called any key. No. Now, I am being kind of funny, but I'm also being kind of serious because it is like that. You know,
It is hard for somebody that doesn't have a technology background to describe what their problem is.
what their problem is. Yeah. We want to help. We definitely do. And luckily, there are people that will be on there as well who will have more knowledge than we have about a specific, like if they've got a Android. We have nothing Android. We know nothing about Android phones or Samsung or whatever they call what is it, Samsung?
Well, Samsung's an Android phone.
Yeah,
so.
that kind of stuff or whatever. We know nothing about that kind of stuff. But there's usually somebody else on there that does, and people you'll find during, if you've never been to one of the retreats, are usually very happy to help other people out with the problem. But I'm going to show you something about this room. This will be central headquarters for the retreat. I will have a table set up where you can't see right now on the side, which will have a computer on it there. I have a computer in front of me that we're looking at right now. And there's the laptop here, and there's a big monitor above this if you see us looking up and things like that. There will be an iPad off to the one side too, because I like to see watch the iPad to see what you see too, because it's like I'm there as a guest as well. Walter will be upstairs in his sewing room with his computer on and watching all of it too. But I can switch cameras if there's certain things I need to show you on it. So you see this camera. Well, you're kind of familiar with this view and this view. But there's this view. That's looking down on top of my cutting mat and my sewing machine. There's this view. That's my embroidery machine. There's this view. This is more on when I'm sitting at the sewing machine. There's this view, which is us in the little corner and the embroidery machine. There's to let you know I have a fairly sophisticated system in this room, and I'm all running it from a little keyboard that sits right here. This little keyboard is what switches all my cameras around. So I thought you'd be interested in just seeing how that all works. If you've been on a pop-up sew day or you've been on a Wednesday sew day, you will see these things in action then. So yeah, technology is great when it works. When it doesn't, it's frustrating as hell. And so that's why I have Walter as well, because when you come on to the virtual retreat, we take attendance. As you come in, you'll be placed in a waiting room area, which if you're familiar with Zoom, you know that's nothing new. And we mark you off on the list, and then you're let in proper with it. That's so we don't have anybody slip in that shouldn't be here. But there'll be some other things about that as well that you'll have to know, like your name, your camera, all that kind of stuff. So as long as you're familiar with how your technology works, that will help a great deal. That's going to make your day so much better. You won't be frustrated with anything. We won't be frustrated either. So there's all of this that goes on behind the scenes. So now you know how it all works. And as I said, you're going to get details about all of this, how to register and everything in the next couple of weeks, well, on October the 1st. I send out all the information that'll be on the video. I send it out to everybody that's on my mailing list. So if you're not on my mailing list, how do you get on my mailing list? If you go to any one of my videos, including this one, and look underneath the video itself and the description box, you'll see a little bit about there'll be some text there, but there'll be the word more at the end of that text. Just click on that. That expands the box. You will see a section. It's called About. Now, it starts off by me saying to you how you send me pictures of your quilts, like for my regular Idiot Quilter episodes, if you want to submit something for that, which has nothing to do with the retreat. But it says all you need to do is send it to my email. Click here for my email address. What that does is it takes you to another screen. And if you look down the screen, you will see email, but you won't see my email address, but you'll see a little box that says prove you're human by checking this box. Once you've checked that box, it'll expand and there's my email address. And that's how you get on my mailing list. You just send me an email with your first and last name and say, please put me on your mailing list, and I will. And I always send you back a confirmation saying, yep, you're on the list. So that's one way. But let's say you don't want to be on the mailing list or whatever, which is fine and dandy. All the stuff that I will talk about in that video will be all transcribed in that box under the video. So you'll be able to see everything that I said in that. So lots of opportunities to have a record of what's there so you don't forget. It's not that complicated, okay? I'm probably making it sound like it's more complicated than it is. It's not. It's pretty simple. Okay. I don't think there's anything else I need to mention about all of this. But so now you know what goes into, at least when I do a virtual retreat. I'm looking forward to this virtual retreat. I'm especially looking forward to my guest presenters because I think they're going to be so good. And if you don't know who they are, Becca from So Becca, in conjunction with her good friend Ian of the Off Kilter Crafter, they're working together, and the dynamics between the two of them are both entertaining and informative. I have Adam from Adam Sews. I have John from the Art East Quilt Company, a fellow Canadian as well, and I'm sure you're familiar with his products, and if you're not, you will be, because he's going to talk about what he's got coming up with everything that he's doing, and he is the flavor of the year, I think. His quilts, his sew-alongs are phenomenal. Then I have and I also have your quilts on display. Again, there'll be details about how to send those to me for the quilt show. So there's a lot happening. So yeah, mark it on your calendar. October 25th. Mark October the 1st on there too, because that's when everything's going to.
When you can register, right?
Yeah, not on that day.
Okay.
The registration will open a week later.
Okay.
For that, yeah, because I can't do all that at once because I'd have been inundated with it.
So what's October 1st?
October 1st, there will be the special video on my channel explaining how to register for the retreat and all that stuff. Yeah, that's October the 1st. Okay. Any other tidbits you want to talk about? I couldn't know about that. Okay. We do have something else before we go that we want to bring up. This is totally a change here of topics. We're not talking about the virtual retreat. You know that, was it last week? Yeah, last week we showed the Buckhorn Quilt Show.
Yeah.
And got a lot of comments that came. People really enjoyed seeing that show. And we had said, too, we really didn't know what to expect. It's in a small place. It was a local guild quilt show. And to be honest, we went in with not a negative attitude, but we went in with, well, it's something to do.
Well, we know Buckhorn itself is a small
community of 1,000 people.
And we just thought maybe it wouldn't be very big.
And but so we didn't have a lot of high expectations for this, but we were pleasantly surprised. As you know in the video, the quilt show was great. Lots of beautiful, beautiful quilts. There were great vendors there. It was a great day. We were so impressed with the way they had it organized, by the friendliness of the people and everything. It was a lot of fun. We definitely plan to go again next year. But I got this one comment, which my first reaction was to just delete it and move on. And then I thought, no. Because people think they can say whatever they want to say in comments to content creators because they are protected because of a computer screen. Nobody will know who they are or whatever. And so, generally speaking, we don't get nasty comments. Every now and then we do, and I usually delete them. As I said, I did not delete this one. And here's how it starts. This is from somebody that goes by the name Pat Hart 35115. Don't know really who that is. Well, that's not true. We do, but we'll know. She starts off with this, with an exclamation mark at the end. You two are well named. Okay. Don't think that's in the tone of a compliment, and I think it's picking up on the fact that I call the channel the Idiot Quilter, so I guess she's playing on the negative aspect of the word idiot. Okay. But why? You have my interest. You were extremely condescending towards the village of Buckhorn, and then in brackets, itty bitty with 2 storefronts. It is itty bitty. It does have 2 storefronts.
It's a tiny little road.
It's the village.
A tattoo parlor, a pizza place, and a restaurant.
And 2 restaurants.
And a LCB.
Oh, it's got a liquor store.
Liquor store.
Okay. That wasn't condescending. That's what it is. It's a village. It has exactly 1,000 people in it. I looked it up on the internet. When I was a little kid, I lived in a town of a village of 3,000.
And that was itty bitty.
And it was itty bitty. But I didn't use the words itty bitty. She's using the words itty bitty. We said, we weren't condescending to it. We said, if anything, too, it was a cute little place. We'd been to Buckhorn before. It's a little town. Most of Canada is made up of, once you get outside of the Greater Toronto area where we live, everything is little. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe she thought we were being city snots. No, we didn't say anything snotty about it. We just said that it was a small place. Then she goes on, the tea room, which was provided by hard-working community center volunteers, in bracket she has, you didn't feel like going into a room full of 80-year-olds. Okay, let me answer to this. We looked into the tea room because we thought we might have lunch there. It was packed. We probably hit it at the wrong time. Every table was filled. There was a lineup. There was a lineup to get food. We said, no, this is too many people here. And, you know, there was, let's face it, the majority of the people at the quilt show were older ladies. And many of them were there with their friends or were meeting up with friends, and they wanted to sit with their friends and have their lunch. We come in, we take a couple of spots, and then some other ladies are coming and they can't sit with their friends because we're taking up a place.
And to be honest, I felt uncomfortable.
Yes. And I felt uncomfortable in there. I didn't feel uncomfortable anywhere else in the quilt show, but we felt uncomfortable only because there were so many people we did not know there. And on top of it all, okay, gentlemen of our age and ladies of their age in the whole bit, there is an etiquette. If a lady has got her hands full of a tray with food and stuff like that, and she's looking around and she can't find any place to sit, etiquette dictates, it's an old way of thinking, I'm sure the millenniums don't think this way anymore, but the gentlemen usually get up and give up their seat to the lady. But then where we're going to sit. And they had like chili or something and soup and sandwiches. Balancing act. Sit on the floor.
So we just said, okay, why don't we just go to town and see if there's a
And
place
go
to have
go to a
there.
restaurant.
And it turns out, the restaurant we went to was quite busy, and there were lots of people there that we saw
At the
show.
quilt show. So we weren't the only ones. Now, Walter made one comment on that video, and I went back over the video after I got this email to him, see if there was anything that I said that Walter jokingly said when we were at the restaurant something about, well, I didn't feel like eating with all those 80-year-old ladies, old ladies, or something like that, or little old ladies, something like that. That was a bit of a joke. Partially true. But it wasn't said in a way that was derogatory. That wasn't our intent.
And not only that, I mean, I'm sure other people in our situation would have felt the same way.
Yeah.
It wasn't anything that I didn't really want to eat food or anything like that. If it had been less busy in the cafeteria, it wasn't so packed, maybe we would have gone.
But this thing about these hard-working community center volunteers, we never say anything against the volunteers. We know they've put a lot of work into this kind of thing. We've been involved in this kind of thing before. We know how much work goes into it. But that was never, ever said. And so she's putting words into our mouth. And then she says, you couldn't identify hand applique from raw edge. You tried to present as knowledgeable, but you failed. No, I didn't.
Mm-hmm.
We were looking at the awesome quilts that were there, and many of them were hand applique. And I really admire anybody that can do that kind of work, because you know, if you've been on the channel for a while, that I profess I am not a hand quilter or appliquer, because it'll be a bloodletting. I am not good with a needle and thread at all. But I was looking at the stitches on those, and I was trying to determine in one particular piece, and this might be the one she's referring to, I was trying to look at it and say, is this raw edge or is this needle turned? And I could not see the stitches. And that was a compliment. Like, I was looking
Yeah, because I said to Steve at the time, I said, so how would you stitch one of those? You know, because I mean, I don't do applique, I wouldn't know, right? So yeah, I'm a novice, I don't know, but I admit to that. But I was curious how it was done.
And I said, I don't know how they've done it, but the stitches must be really, really tiny that they have in there, because I can't even see them. It was wonderful. I mean, oh my God, that was amazing.
So what?
So yeah, and I never pass myself off as being an expert on that. I am not an expert in anything. Why do you think I call the channel Idiot Quilter? How many times have I shown people my mistakes regularly?
See, obviously, she doesn't.
What?
She expects everybody that comes to the show to be proficient at everything.
I don't know. And then it was a chance, though, for you to tell your followers about all the quilts you've made instead of presenting the show quilts, which I thought was why you came. Yes, we came to see the quilts, and we did, and we showed them. I made a comparison, or a point of reference, more or less, which I heard many people do this. I saw some quilts that looked familiar. Like, some of them were patterns that I had done. I did not say, but mine's so much better, or anything like that. No, I was just a reference point. Yeah, I know that pattern. I've seen that pattern. Or I forgot that pattern, but I've never done that one. I should now that I see what it looks like when it's done. Or, yeah, I did something similar to that. But no, plus I didn't know anything about these quilts for the most part. I was guessing, because there is nothing on those quilts that gives you a real breakdown explanation of the whole quilt. And even if there had been, how many people actually read them all? It's like going into a museum. They have lots of things written, but, you know, do you ever stand there and absorb everything that's there? No. I did point out that 2 of my quilts actually were there, and that was a surprise to me because of the Quilt of Valor table. And I have donated quilts to Quilt of Valor, and they had 2 of my quilts there on display on their booth. They were not part of the show. They were there just to show people what Quilts of Valor is all about. That was it. I was flattered. I felt honored. But if she also had watched this video, she would have saw there was another lady there with her quilt in the Quilts of Valor, and I got her to tell me all about her quilt. I didn't spend any time on my 2 quilts and explain them in minute detail. I just said, oh, look. In fact, I didn't even recognize them at first. It's been a while since I'd seen them. But I don't know why that was a problem for this woman. Um, I'm glad you at least supported the vendors, the best contribution you made to the show. Okay, I don't think I was there to make any kind of contribution to the show except my entry fee money. These quilt shows are put together by guilds to raise money that keeps them supported for next year or two. Used to be part of a guild. I know how that works. Guild. I was there to see the quilts, and I was there to shop. It was a day out.
And to make a video.
And to make a video. To show other people who couldn't go there to it. That's the only important. But she has taken exception to me. Well, here's the theory. We found her. She's a member of that guild. In fact, at one point in time, she was a featured mystery quilt person in their newsletter. Back, I think it was 2015, 2014, 2015.
No, I thought it was like 2018, but I don't know.
Was it? I don't know. Maybe it's 27. Anyways, sometime like that, fine. Now, I could turn around and say, oh, just because you were in this publication by a guild, I guess you were God's gift to the quilting world.
And she's an expert quilter.
And she's an expert, and she's done applique and everything. I don't doubt her skill at all. Don't know her. We just happened to find her on that.
And she decided to look you up and make a nasty comment.
Yeah. I think she also has an issue with men.
Yeah.
I think. We have come into contact with some ladies in the quilting world who have an issue with men entering in their world. Well, get over it because we're there. We're staying. So, yeah. I just thought, and I was going to delete this. I did write back to her. I just put, you're kind of nasty. Your comment is not constructive. And you can read it for yourself because I've left it up. Go ahead. But I don't know what her problem is, but she has a problem. To lash out like this. You make your own judgment on it. If you haven't seen the video, I recommend you watch the video and see if you think that we were being condescending, feeling superior, constantly comparing what I've done as being better and superior to what those people had in the quilt show. Stuff like that. I didn't do any of that. So, yeah. It gets my goat. It gets my goat because there was no need for this. There was no call for it. I don't know what her problem is. She has a problem. She has a problem. She's not a happy person. I guess that's the way to look at it. She's not a happy person. But all the things she's accusing me of.
I mean, not only that, you'd think that, okay, they're running this quilt show, that they would be happy to have somebody like you or like us come and view the quilts.
And,
isn't it that there for people to go see?
And at the end of the video, we said we had a really enjoyable day. It was a great quilt show, and we'd be sure to come back next year.
Mm-hmm.
We endorsed it as well.
In fact, another lady gave us a leaflet for another quilt show that's going to be at the end of October.
Yeah, in her guild.
In her guild.
Yeah.
So,
and we'll probably be going to that. So, yeah. And the other thing, too, is I would never, ever criticize someone else's work in public. I might have my thoughts, but it would be done. It would be in my brain.
Yeah,
I would not publicly say anything against anybody's quilt. And there wasn't any quilt there that I saw that I didn't think was worthy to be in that show. They were all worthy. They were all great. So, yeah. She has a problem. But anyways, I thought I could have let this go, but no. And on a wider field, on a bigger scale here, a lot of times content creators get these kind of negative comments about something that somebody gets a bee in their bonnet and decide they're going to take it out on the content creator. And a lot of content creators let it roll off their back kind of a thing, or delete the comment or whatever, just ignore it. And I've done that too. But sometimes I'm making a point. Just because you can write a comment on somebody's YouTube channel doesn't give you the right to be nasty. And on top of it all, I am pretty sure she didn't even watch the whole video all the way through. So, yeah, there you go. So, you don't need to write comments about this one way or the other or anything like that. I just felt I needed to say something because, yeah, it kind of hurt. It kind of hurt. Okay, on that note, it's time to go bye-bye. So tune in on Sunday for Stephen and Walter Live, and next week for all the other videos and whatnot, and I'll show you next Tuesday.
Russ having a sew day?
Oh, yeah. Forgot. Russ, our friend Russ of Quilt Meets World, he's having a sew day on Sunday. Go to his channel. You'll find all the information there for it.
Yeah, that's Quilt Meet World.
Yeah, Quilt Meets World.
Yeah.
And he calls it Sewing Shenanigans. So, and it's always a good time. So be sure to check out his channel, and you'll get the link there for it, unless you're on his mailing list, and then you've already got the link. Okay, that's it. Bye for now. We'll see you later.
Yeah, bye-bye.